Let us see while learning Hbase, how do we build a query. Suppose I want to execute a query, how do we build that query? There are certain steps. I will show you the screenshots of execution of each and every step. So whenever we are trying to work with building a query system, first one, we need to see whether the prerequisites are installed properly or not. If not, we need to install these three prerequisites. Here we are trying to show working with Java API. So Java should be there, Hadoop should be there because we are trying to store the data on HDFS and Hbase. We want to work with Hbase query. So these are the prerequisites that are needed for working with a query building system. Then we are supposed to see after successful installation, we need to navigate to Apache Drill Web Console and select storage menu option as is shown in the screenshot. What is the storage plugins we are trying to use? We are trying to use Hbase, Hive, all these things. Whichever you want, you can enable them. These are the storage systems. Enable them. This is the second step. Similarly, if you want to access the CP and CFS, these are the file systems just like our HDFS, you want to access them, try to enable these storage plugins. Then what we do is choose the Hbase enable option, and after that we go to update option. We will see the response like this. Whenever you are enabling these Hbase and the storage options, this is how you should be seeing that. The Hbase Quorum Journal Manager will be working on localhost and it will be listening on the port 2181. And what type of configuration we are working with? Hbase. Try to see, start the Hadoop and Hbase. Hbase shell we are going for this. The moment you give Hbase shell, it will start with your interactive shell wherein we are trying to give the commands. So far we are just building the environment. I did not start with the actual query here, right? Now, what are we trying to do is, we are going to create a customer table consisting of account and address, account name and address. So this is how we are trying to create. Create, what is the table name? Customers. Under customers, what are the family names we have? Account and address. Two family data we are trying to store. Customers table, it has two family groups. I am repeating again, account and address. Say for example, we are trying to load the Hbase customers.txt from HDFS into this file. How do I say? Put customers into customer table, Alice, and what is the account name we are trying to give? This is the row identifier. If you remember, the row identifier is Alice, account name is Alice, account street, this is the address. So we are trying to go for Alice, the rows wherein name is, person's name is Alice, customer name, and this is the address of Alice. Bob address, Frank address, Mary address. Likewise, we are trying to store the data. Now, suppose the file is having that, we are trying to display the data. How do we display the data? Cat, this is normally to see the contents of a file. Customers text bin Hbase. This will also show you the data, or I can also give the command. What is the command I can give? At Apache drill shell, what is the command we are giving? select star from Hbase dot customers. When you give that, it will try to show you this data. If you observe, the data you are getting will be in some byte addresses, byte arrays. I will show you the actual data. Now the data is showing in a binary format. Now we have to convert it into readable format. When you are trying to convert into readable format, we use the command convert from function, which is there in Apache drill. How do we give the statement now? Instead of simply giving, in the previous slide, how did we give the query? Select star from hbase.customers. The data like Alice, Mark, Frank, whatever names were there, those are coming in some binary formats. If I don't want this, I want to see the actual data. So I should be giving like this: select, convert from, the row key should be converted to UTF, Unicode text format, under ASCII 8-bit as customer ID. Similarly, second field should be account name, next one should be state, next one should be street, next one should be zip code. From which table? From hbase.customers. So even though the data is internally in binary format, take that data, convert it into this UTF Unicode format and show me the result. When we execute this command using convert from function, we see the result. This is how the result appears. So directly we have given select star from customers Hbase table. It was showing byte array information. Using convert from function, you are going to get the actual data which we have uploaded into the table. So this is how we try to build the query. This is almost similar to MySQL. The only thing is we just need to take care of uploading the data and how do I access the data. Actual data can come from convert from function. So these are the fundamental differences between RDBMS and Hbase. Almost self-explanatory, all the things. And we need to talk about some of the concepts where we are likely to have a special attention. So some of the common issues users will go when they are working with Hbase cluster is, when you are working with Hbase, HDFS is also used. So the way Hbase works with HDFS is different from the way MapReduce works with HDFS. So what is the meaning of that one? When we are working with MapReduce, HDFS files are just opened to read the data, and once we finish the map task, actually we don't require the file at all, because who is accessing the actual data? The map task is accessing the actual data. So the files are opened in HDFS. Once the map task reads the data, the files can be closed. But whereas in Hbase, data files are opened on cluster startup and kept open so that we avoid paying the costs associated with opening the files on each access. What do we mean by this? Whenever, as I told, when you are working with MapReduce, you open the file. We have two methods, map method and reduce method. When the mapper is finishing reading data from the source files, it will generate intermediate output. That intermediate output is input to the reduce task. So does the reduce task reads data from the original files in HDFS? Definitely no. So in such case, once the map function is finishing its job, we can close the source files. We opened them. Once the map function is finishing reading the data, we are closing the files. But whereas when you are working with Hbase, if you just go through these sentences, it says instead of transferring the data multiple times across the network, which will take too much of network bandwidth, what we are trying to do is we are trying to keep the files open. When are we opening the files? The moment you are starting the Hbase cluster, you are opening the HDFS files to which an associated table is there in the Hbase. How long do I keep it? As long as the cluster is open. Because of this, Hbase tends to see issues which are normally not encountered by MapReduce clients. So what shall we do in this case? Because we are trying to keep the files open on a loaded cluster, it doesn't take long before we run into system and Hadoop imposed limits. What is the meaning of system and Hadoop imposed limits? How long can you open the files and how many files can you open and for how much time? That is the question. For instance, say for example, we have a cluster at 3 nodes. We have a cluster of 3 nodes, very smaller one, each running an instance of a data node and a region server. And we are running an upload into a table which is currently at 100 regions and 10 column families. Please understand, there is a table which has 100 regions of data, means the table is horizontally partitioned into 100 regions. So there are 100 regions and in every row I have 10 column families. Allow that each column family has on an average 2 flush files. What is the meaning of that? For every column family, in order to store the data, I need to use 2 files on HDFS because the data is huge. One single file may not be sufficient. I might be using 2 files, or the same column family has 2 members. So for every member you assume a file, right? So try to understand the scenario. A table is currently at 100 regions. Each row has 10 columns. And for every column family we are requiring 2 files. Total how many files should be opened? 100 regions into 10 column families, and for every column family 2 files. Total 2000 files should be opened at any point of time. Whenever we are working with these many files, added to this there are some maintenance files also to be opened, which we call them as miscellaneous file descriptors. So when you are trying to work with these many files at the same instance of time, what happens is default limit might be, we are trying to go beyond the default limit of how many files can be opened at an instance of time. Normally it is 1024 files can be opened in one single instance of time. In my example, how many files? 2000 plus files should be opened. That means we have crossed, almost doubled the default limit of number of files that can be opened. So in order to do this, what we do is we try to increase the number of files that can be opened at one instance of time, and basically they have increased it to 10,240 files. So at the same instance of time you can open 10,240 files. They just made it 10 times. Just to take care of not running into out of memory, all such issues. Then user interface. Hbase runs a web server on the master system to present a view of user interface, wherein it is listening on the port 60010 and the master UI displays list of basic attributes like software versions, what are the software versions available, right now what is the load on the cluster, and how many requests are coming per second, per minute likewise, and how many cluster tables are there, what are the region servers right now participating. All such information will be kept onto the UI. We click on any of the region server, the data will be taken to individual region server, or the view will be taken to individual region server, wherein the basic metrics of the current region server will be shown. So by default it is showing information about all the region servers. The moment you select one of the region servers, all the metrics related to one particular region server will be shown. So it's a very sophisticated user interface. And apart from this, you want to see any of the metrics, generally all those metrics are basically meant into Hadoop metrics 2 -Hbase dot properties. This is the file which is containing, or this is the configuration directory which is containing all the vital metrics of Hbase. So we can go through this directory and the file can be opened and you can see various metrics. What are the metrics? For example, request rates, counts of vitals, resources that we have used so far in order to execute. All such vital metrics will be stored in this. So we can build a query system, we can see the basic differences between RDBMS and Hbase, and what are the major differences when compared with the MapReduce and Hbase. So with this, I am winding up with Hbase also. Thank you.